with my father and co-host Jerry. Say hi, Dad.
Hello.
This time we're doing the 2020 Let Him Go, starring Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. This is the first time we've actually been in a movie theater in a while, um, and it was not worth it. um, I never really got your opinion, but I found this movie pretty boring and far too slow.
Yeah, it moved really slow.
Hmm.
The acting was good.
Yeah, no, the acting is the one thing I will say. The acting's fantastic.
Yeah,
Uh, and honestly, what was that other one we saw this year that was really, really bad and boring? Like Rhythm Section.
yeah.
That's the only thing I think that saved it from being another one of those.
hmm
That was just kind of boring and bland, and nothing happened, and it
Well,
just
the rhythm section didn't even have a story to it. I think
yeah. This one at least had somewhat of a story.
this one had somewhat of a story, but the story was too straightforward.
And that's not bad, but the movie's also 2 hours long. About.
Yeah,
Uh,
and nothing really happened. Nothing really. There was no real twist or anything.
yeah, and a lot could be cut out.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, you didn't need to have their son in the movie at all.
yeah,
Like, yes, they lost their son, blah blah blah. You didn't need to show it because it plays no role in it whatsoever.
yeah,
Like, you could just say their son died and it's their, or it could even be just their daughter and their husband died or whatever.
yeah.
It didn't.
And we really didn't get any backstory at all.
Yeah, no.
About the son and daughter's relation.
Uh-huh.
We really,
Hmm.
the daughter said she didn't see eye to eye, but there was only one scene in which that
Yeah,
occurred in. The
yeah.
scene with the baby in the milk. Yeah,
Uh, and that was like a quick thing that wasn't even that really
yeah,
that like she's like, well, I didn't check, and it's like whatever. I guess we should say the plot of this movie is the son dies, the daughter-in-law a few years later remarries. She remarries to an abusive husband that takes her and their grandchildren away, child away to his parents, who's this terrible, awful human being. Uh,
yeah.
but
Abusive family. Yeah.
another abusive family, yeah. Um, and now, like honestly,
And
like yeah, go ahead.
what was the American Indian boy in for?
No reason, just so they could have a guide at the one point,
Yeah,
and his real name was like Bobo or something, which I don't
yeah,
know. That at least gave me a laugh. But a lot of it was like, they mentioned he was a police officer for 30 years.
yeah.
That never. Actually, I'm going to complain about that later because there was one scene later on that actually really made me mad at.
hmm
Because even if they would have left it out, if he just would have been a rancher, they mentioned like she used to love horses, but that never really gets brought up other than she can ride. There's
Yeah.
never a lot of this movie could be cut out. It could easily be 90 minutes or even less, and I think even if it was then, it would still be boring.
Yeah.
Because there's just like it's okay to have a straightforward thing, but it's not really. It's trying to be a lot more gritty than it actually is. It does nothing with the fact that it's set in the 60s.
Yeah.
In fact, again, that's something that I'm going to bring up later on at one of the scenes that I don't think is realistic. But like some of the stuff, like it like has this thing where he contacts. They're trying to find where the son-in-law moved to that was pointless, and like all of that was just pointless. There was a lot of filler in it. Like we didn't need to know that they moved. We didn't need to know uh, we didn't
Yeah.
even really need the scene of the kid's new stepfather and her new and their daughter-in-law's new husband hitting them because they could have just got to the family and the family be batshit.
Yeah.
We didn't need a lot. Like I mean, at least like the hitting it, you could kind of see it happening and why the grandmother was intense. But that just added a whole level of drama that never really gets followed through on. Never really gets.
Yeah.
It's just like it's not even really a slow burn because being a slow burn is fine. It's just a nothing.
And why did the police officers in the town back the Wee Boy family
Yeah.
rather than a former police officer?
Yeah, that actually drove me nuts. That's what I was going to talk about. Actually, uh, that scene. There's an actually like a scene where like they go to the family. They kind of get screwed over by the family with the son. The grandmother goes out and talks to the mother, and she's like, "Look, I know he hit you. Blah blah blah." They're gonna flee at night. They don't obviously the Wee Boys, the rival family that has this matriarch in it that um, comes up, and there's a bit of a scruffle. Kevin Costner pulls a gun on him, but he gets jumped on, and they actually cut off his fingers.
Yeah.
In it, and then like they have this police officer come, and it's not like he's scared of the Wee Boys. It's not like he's related to them. It's not like it's just nothing, and he's just backing them, and it's like first off, like I mean, this is the South in the '60s. There is no way they're not going to like have anything to do with another an ex-sheriff,
Yeah.
or anything. It's just, I mean, that's just maddening to me. Or like
And,
even
well,
like,
how are the Boys going to describe why they brought the axe to the hotel?
yeah, well, or even like the nature of his injury and where his hand was cut off at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's all this thing that's just like it's just maddening. That scene drove me up the wall.
Yeah.
Because first off, there's gonna be some good old boys network. I mean,
Yeah.
that's usually in this movie, it's like the brother of the sheriff or a powerful town in the family. Not these kind. They don't seem to be that rich. They're just kind of like they live on the outskirts of town. It seems
In fact, their house was sort of run down in the movie.
their house is run down. They don't like seem to have any political connections, and the cops just like, yep, you guys should leave. And it's like what the, I've never seen something. I don't think I've ever seen in a movie, a scene like that where there wasn't some other layer to it.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't like, oh, the family's real powerful. Oh, they're dangerous. They're these drug lords. They're yada yada yada. They're related to the cop some way. They've been in this town for generations and were a well-respected family. But in this one, it should be the opposite because he was a police officer.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's like I have never actually seen something like that in a movie, and it just drove me up the wall. I mean, that scene was enough to just like, if the rest of the movie was great, even I'd still be annoyed at this movie because of that scene.
Yeah.
Because it was just so, like, it, to me, it's like it just made absolutely no sense and was like, it seemed like all of a sudden they had like aliens come down almost.
Yeah.
It's something that like actually shocked me on what it was.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The whole movie was like that. The movie didn't really get going until the last, 20 minutes.
20, 30 minutes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No.
I mean, you have them, they're chasing after the Wee Boys, but they really don't do any chasing. They don't find out anything.
There's no investigation.
There's no investigation. They just go to the place, and then they get the guy say, well, you should go here. And the Indian boy says, you should talk to this guy. And, I mean, there's no real investigation. It's sort of like they just dropped in on a police officer and he knew something about them. And they dropped in on this Indian and he knew something about him. And they also, you would think if they knew something about him, especially the police officer, if he knew the Wee Boys were his bad thing, he would have warned the guy.
Yeah, he would have warned the guy or something. Because, I mean, it was just like, a lot of that was just like, a lot of it was just like nothing.
Yeah.
It was very slow, a lot of exposition, not really moving. Like I said, it was good acting, but it was good acting in scenes that actually weren't that bad, but just led to nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And like the American Indian, he had a backstory that he told, but the backstory didn't make any sense with the movie.
Yeah, well,
I mean, it didn't become part of the movie.
And then yeah, it's just like, oh, he knew the land so they can get there faster
Yeah.
later on. Nothing nothing that and like to the extent that like Kevin Costner's character doesn't care that for the longest time in the movie, it just didn't make any like
Yeah.
sense. And look, I know like it was a different thing to hit like your wife or something in the '60s than it would be today, but still, just
Yeah.
him like kind of being like, did you see it? Blah blah blah, and just being all against everything. Like
Yeah.
when they're like not getting really pissed off when they're with the family at the dinner where they're like just kind of jerking them around and then let them see the kid for like 2 seconds and
Yeah.
do that. Like clearly they're messing with them. Clearly they had no intention of really just all this like stuff. And even being kind of against the wife to tell like, hey, you can run away from them and stuff.
Yeah.
Against his wife, not the other one. It just to me and then him at the end just going it alone after first off getting his fingers cut off the day before.
Yeah.
Um, which I actually something I wanted to talk about in this movie. This movie seems like it should be a lot more violent than it actually is.
Mhm.
And if I feel like if I describe some of the scenes, you'd see a much more violent scene than what actually happened, and it feels like they were going for to make this dark, gritty, realistic thing.
Mhm.
But like it's barely like when they cut his fingers off with the axe, it's just a quick scene. It doesn't like it honestly would have been better if they didn't even show it. But it's just so flat and it doesn't like have any tension in it. It doesn't have any like excitement. It doesn't have any like you're not on the edge of your seat.
Yeah.
Even in the there's only really two action scenes in this movie. That's one, and then at the end when they go to get their grandchild back, which they happen probably again in the last 20-30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, which again for a kind of a revenge thriller thing isn't good. There's no real build up between them and the other family too. It just sort of happens.
It just sort of happens all at the end.
Yeah. It's not like they do anything really to make the other family angry at them. They don't do. It's just bizarre almost.
Yeah.
But and it seems like it's not a bad plot or anything, and you could have made like a good kind of minimalistic revenge thriller. But you can't have at least an hour of the movie easily cut off. You could easily cut out,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't lose anything. You can probably actually have more of that, but like just a lot of things tend to go nowhere. Why they spent the night at the jailhouse went nowhere.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, we're looking for that. Uh,
Yeah.
like it didn't do anything. A lot of the flashbacks he had with him and his grandson, or him and his son, I guess all those flashbacks did nothing for the movie.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, okay, you get a scene of him bonding with his grandson. We get that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need that. Um, like John Wick was like just fine. You got the guy loved his wife. They didn't
Yeah.
beat you over the head with it. They didn't beat you over the head with the dog either. And you understood like in a day like why he was so attached and why he was doing all the stuff he was.
Mhm.
But
But
like, mhm.
they, I mean, in John Wick, you actually had a story there. You had the, I mean, the mean guy was coming after him too.
Yeah,
Yeah. In this one, all of it, as I said, you go rolling around, and then all of a sudden, boom, it happens.
yeah. I mean, these people are like the grandmother and stuff is just nasty for the sake of being nasty.
Yeah.
But she's not in a fun way. Just not like it's, and you're not really given any real. You're giving, I guess, her backstory or whatever, but it doesn't seem to lead it to anybody. It's not like she has this great pride. You get kind of her son snubbed her for the wedding and stuff, and she wasn't happy about that. But it doesn't still amount to. It feels like a lot of the stuff just doesn't amount to anything. Like I said,
Yeah.
a lot of the scenes themselves aren't bad, but because of like I think the scene where they're at the dinner table and they're kind of talking and it's going on before the kid arrives, like might have actually been a pretty good scene, but I was already so bored of the movie by that point,
Yeah.
and I just assumed it would go nowhere.
Hmm.
Um, None of the action scenes really have any tension to them.
Yeah, they're short.
They're short, which isn't bad, but they're not like overly brutal or anything. They're not. In fact, a lot of them are kind of The ending action scene had some points I thought were really stupid in it. Like the two people are tussling and she just shoots and she hits her son, of course.
Yeah.
It's like nobody would do that. Uh, like the one guy picks up the kid to use him as a shield to prevent Kevin Costner from shooting him, and he just kind of lets Kevin Costner walk over to him so he can get a.
Yeah.
I was like, he could have just moved the kid in front of his gun barrel or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It didn't. It just didn't make any sense.
No.
And again, they're trying to be this violent thing, but the violence is very brief. It's not really too graphic, which is fine, but it just didn't seem to have any of that visceral impact. Like, I mean, like a lot of the scenes in Clockwork Orange, if you look at them kind of out of context, they're not very violent. At least compared to like something
Yeah.
like,
But the psychological
but it's just like,
violence.
yeah, and that's what you need to go for in a movie like this, the psychological violence,
Mhm.
because you're not going to compete with something that's like just over the top violence and stuff, because it's not meant to be fun, but it's just not entertaining. It doesn't like give you goose flesh. It's not like ooh.
Yeah.
Uh, it needs to be something more along the lines of like we talked about on the show, like Halloween. How, how
Yeah.
it's more just like uh, it's more disturbing or that. But no, it was just kind of almost like a very slightly bloody action scene with
Yeah.
no
Mhm.
like almost everybody that got shot died instantly. There was no real uh like them bleeding out. There was no nothing. It just didn't have any impact, which is what this movie all had the problem of. It just didn't have any impact. A lot, like I said, like honestly, probably if you watch some of the scenes from this movie, just as scenes themselves, you'd think it was probably like you could watch a number of scenes from it and think it's probably a pretty good movie.
Mhm.
But then the scenes just go nowhere,
Yeah.
and they
Well, like, why did they bring the axe along to the thing to start with?
well they brought a
Was
whole
it?
bunch of stuff along,
Yeah.
and they clearly like busted into the hotel room because
Yeah.
he goes to shut the door on them. They kick it open.
Hmm.
Uh, like you're still like they're like, well, he pulled the gun on me, so we like pulled an axe and somehow cut off his fingers. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, well, he pulled the gun on me and that's how he got this axe wound on his arm. Okay, but oh, and that's why. And there's obviously a chop on the table, but that was really, honest to God, the cop scene was the worst scene in the movie.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like it was just so
Hmm.
out there and like something that would like, and I know there's like suspension of disbelief, but
Hmm.
it was just so like it wasn't poorly acted or anything, but it just made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's one of those where you go, humans don't work like that. Nobody works like that.
Hmm.
Like if you got the like even the fact the cop was afraid of them, or
Yeah. Well, it didn't give anything on that.
yeah,
I mean, we didn't get any backstory on the cop at all.
or the
We just
family.
no what they were doing in the area.
Hmm.
Uh, and they had chances to do that. They had the Indian
Hmm.
and they had the other police officer.
Yeah, the police. You kind of get some hints that they're not like all that
Yeah.
good, and you kind of get some hints that they mess with people, which is fine, but they're still not threatening unless there's something about them. Like,
Yeah.
were they this big crime family? Were they this rich family that had all this power? Were they?
Yeah.
But they don't seem like any of that. They just
No.
seem like a group of jerks.
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't make like I said, and it doesn't make sense the cop would act like that in general, let alone when you give the guy backstory that he's a former police officer.
Yeah.
Uh, let alone setting it in the South in the '60s.
Yeah.
But like I said, it just did not make that scene like just kind of blew my mind almost. Like, and it wasn't like I sat back and thought aloud about this scene after the movie. In the movie, I was confused by that scene when it was
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, are they gonna like say something or no? Um, like I said, I don't know. I think I've like said all I can on that scene without repeating myself, but it just confused me so much.
And the other problem with the cop scene is they didn't really fight back.
Yeah,
Kevin Costner and wife didn't really fight back.
no,
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a normal reaction.
yeah,
The cop didn't make a normal reaction. They didn't make a normal reaction. It was just sort of there.
no. Like this scene was handled so poorly and so bizarre in the movie, and actually make like this movie's based on a book. I want to see how it's handled in the book,
Yeah.
because there's got, like I said, I don't know if like a lot of stuff was, I don't know if it's a good book, considered a good book or bad book or whatever. I don't know, um, but it was just weird,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like and and it's a scene that's actually pivotal and important in the movie when most of the scenes weren't, which makes it all the worse, I think.
Yeah.
Um, because that one actually had an effect on the plot, unlike 90% of the other scenes, unlike at least an hour of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I mean, it doesn't help that their stepdaughter, not their stepdaughter, their daughter-in-law has zero personality
Yeah.
and is just like an absolute doormat throughout it. She does the actress does a terrible job at playing her. Uh, I don't know who she is. Obviously, Diane Lane and Kevin Costner do fantastic jobs in this movie, and anything we say said about the movie, it is not their fault. I don't think.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's just a movie of almost scenes that don't have much consequence or mean anything until the end. Um, and then by that time, it's too late because, like you said, they get to the end and they're having the fight in the house that the wife doesn't even arrive till almost everybody is dead, and she just kind of shoots the uh, Kevin Costner and helps
Yeah.
get the kid out. But the Native American kid doesn't really do anything.
No.
The fact she's a good rider doesn't have anything with, or horses doesn't have anything to do with it. Um, the fact the house is on fire is only there, doesn't play into the action scene really. It just kind of gets the people out for a bit. There's no clever use of that. Just some symbolism at the end. But and it feels like he could have just lit the house on fire and had them all start running out of the house and just held them at gunpoint then, or something. I don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm trying to figure and do it. The fact he checks the gun and only has 2 shots in the gun, and he does use both shots. Well, they do use both shots, but there's nothing clever with it. It doesn't feel like there's, and his wife checks the gun to see it, but they never use it for anything smart.
Yeah.
It just has 2 shots. In it. That's all. Which is just I mean, it's just very bland and not exciting or thrilling or like grotesque or. It doesn't succeed on any level of what it tries, I think.
Right.
And that's a real shame because Kevin Costner and Diane Lane are doing a really good job in this movie. And it's not a, and again, it's not a bad setup for a revenge thriller. But like I said, I just don't know where their heads at were during some of this, or why it wasn't like. I feel like I still wouldn't have liked it, but I would be a lot nicer on it if it was 90 minutes compared to almost 2 hours. But I still would have thought it was slow, and I was like nodding on and off during the movie, which I don't know. I just can't recommend this one at all. Do you have anything else you want to say on it?
No, I don't believe so. I think you've hit most of the high points. I mean, they just didn't do the job.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, as you said, it wasn't logical.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't hardly anything in it that was logical.
Yeah. Like even the daughter-in-law leaving without telling the grandparents didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Up to her. I mean, and she doesn't. I mean, that was another loose end.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I lost you for a second, Bill. What did you say?
At least the way I see it.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost you for a second, Bill. What did you say? I don't know if it recorded anything.
You would think that we've at least got some storyline of why she left.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I realize, like, the husband's abusive and everything.
Why they left in a hurry?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense that they left in a hurry to begin with, since you don't have any urgency. But, like...
They had a chance to do that, too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way with most of this movie, that they had a chance to do it and they never did it.
Mm-hmm. Like, the thing, like, I know, like, she's abused and scared of her husband and everything, but you can find a payphone. You can say, like, hey, I don't want them to worry about me, let me call them. Or something. I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about this? I think we have some audio.
Because, as you said, they went over to see the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
And the landlord just said, well, they left and they packed all up. She didn't say, well, they left because they owed $200,000 of, rent, or he got in a fight downtown and all of a sudden they left. They didn't give any reason for them leaving in a hurry.
Yeah, and like I said, she could have just got a payphone. I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about this? Because I'm thinking we're having some audio issues, so I don't know if you can even hear me right now. I'm going to take that as a no. So, okay, well, I think that's all we have to say. I know he was talking about somewhat like why they left, and it probably got cut out. And I hope you can kind of understand where we're coming from. Again, sorry about the audio issues. I'm ending the stream here. Good night, everybody, and thank you.